in New York City where glass office towers belong. In the middle of Greenwich Village is not one of them. People do not come to this neighborhood from all over the world to see glass office towers. They come here to see rich history, incredible culture, the vitality of a diverse neighborhood that welcomes everybody. It's tragic that we have to be here today in order to send a message which should be so obvious to the people who run our city, which is that losing our distinctive character and our history is maybe a quick buck for a developer, but not good for the future of this neighborhood and certainly not good for the future of New York City. So, my name is Berman. I'm the Executive Director of the Greenwich Village Society for Historic Preservation. Thank you so much for coming out here today. I see lots of members and lots of new faces, so we appreciate all of you being here today. I want to also thank the East Village Community Coalition, the Bowery Alliance of Neighbors, who are co-sponsors of today's event. You're going to hear from some great speakers today from Community Board 2, who we've worked very closely with throughout this process. We have no shortage of people power behind what we've been fighting for. What we don't yet have is the support of the decision makers who are in charge of things like the Landmarks Preservation Commission, the City Planning Commission, and the City Council backing us up in the way that we need them to. And we're here today to send a message to them loud and clear. East Village is not Midtown South. Greenwich Village is not Midtown South. They are beloved neighborhoods. They contribute immeasurably to what makes New York City great. Don't destroy them. Don't turn them into something that they're not. It's not too late, although the clock is running out. This building, the city could still intervene and save the St. Denis Hotel.
Save it! Save it!
They have not yet issued the demolition permits, which is basically the deciding factor at which point it becomes too late for the city to act. So the city could still act. And for those of you who don't know, this hotel is a place where an unbelievable array of historic figures spent time here and are connected to it. It's believed that Abraham Lincoln stayed here. We know that his wife, Mary Todd Lincoln, stayed here. Ulysses S. Grant, when he was writing his memoirs, stayed here. When he was having some trouble, the publishing company called in Mark Twain to help him with the writing of his memoirs. He stayed here for 3 months during the course of doing that. Alexander Graham Bell's first demonstration of the telephone in New York took place in this building. Sarah Bernhardt, the great 19th century actress, she set up shop here in this building. And into the 20th century, we have Marcel Duchamp, who had his studio here for 20 years, making great revolutionary art within these walls right up until his death in 1968. And sadly, a developer just sees an opportunity to build something a little bit bigger and a little bit classier and to make a quick buck. What's amazing about this building and so many of the buildings we see around us is they've lived many lives. They've gone through many different incarnations as New York City has changed, as this neighborhood changed, and they've adapted. They've had new life breathed into them. What used to be ballrooms on the ground floor of this building became the center of the antique industry in New York. So they've evolved, but they've held on to the past even as they've changed and adapted in the present and to the future. But unfortunately, we don't see our city leaders having that same foresight or the developers having the same foresight and realizing that we can hold on to what makes New York great even as we continue to grow and evolve. Now, we may be here literally just before the wrecking ball, but as many of you know, we've been out here for the last 3 years fighting to get the city to do something about the need to protect this neighborhood here. This part of Greenwich Village and the East Village is unique in that it has terrible zoning that encourages big, huge, high-rise office, hotel, and condo towers, and does not have the landmark protections that ensure that we hold on to our neighborhood's great history. We've been bringing this to the mayor for years, and he has adamantly refused to do anything about it. And in fact, when we met with his city planning commissioners and we said, do you really think that big office towers and big hotels belong in this area? They said, yes, we think that's great. And affordable housing is something else that we fought for, and the mayor, who pretends to be a champion of affordable housing, when we presented him with a rezoning plan for this neighborhood that would protect its character but encourage the creation or retention of affordable housing, he said absolutely not, because there was nothing in it for his deep-pocketed developer friends who really set the agenda behind what he does. You know, adding insult to injury, over the summer in August, the mayor's plan for a commercial upzoning on 14th Street to allow the construction of a 23-story tech hub was approved by the city council. We were extremely disappointed in this because the city council member for this neighborhood promised that she would not approve it unless it included comprehensive neighborhood protections.
Sold us out!
What we got instead was a promise from the city that 7 of the more than 200 historic buildings in this neighborhood would be considered for landmark designation. 7 out of 200, that's 3%. And a very, very, very paltry commitment to do something about hotels, which is not a guarantee that we won't get huge new hotels. It just gives them another new hoop to jump through. So I want to send a message to Councilmember Carlina Rivera today that she says that she cares about these neighborhoods and that she wants to represent them and advocate for them. She needs to step up to the plate. That has not happened yet. There is more work to be done, and if she wants to work with us to make that happen, my door is open. I am happy to work with her or anyone else to protect this neighborhood. But you have to put your money where your mouth is, and your actions have to reflect your words. And what this neighborhood needs right now is action. And that is more landmark protections for this neighborhood or a change in the zoning to ensure that we don't have more of what's about to happen here, which is the destruction of our history being replaced by big glassy office towers that could easily go in Midtown or the financial district or a lot of other places where they would fit in perfectly. Now, by the way, this is not just a rally to vent our anger. This is a working rally. All of you who are holding signs, you can see on the back of them, and you see on this sign right here, if you just go to gvshp.org/landmarks or gvshp.org/mayor, with a couple of clicks, you'll be able to send a letter to the chair of the Landmarks Preservation Commission demanding that they do more than they're doing now to protect this neighborhood. So please make sure before you leave today you do that, or when you go home, and ask 1 or 2 of your neighbors, your friends, to do the same. We have a new chair at the Landmarks Preservation Commission. Her name is Sarah Carroll, and I will tell you, I know her, I've worked with her for decades. She's somebody who has a strong background in preservation, which is what we and others demanded. Believe it or not, for the last 20 or more years, the chair of the Landmarks Preservation Commission has been somebody who has no background in historic preservation. So Sarah's the first chair in a long time who actually knows what historic preservation is. We have an opportunity here. I've spoken with her. We've sent her our priorities. This is our #1 priority. She's indicated that she wants to work with us, that she wants to work with communities throughout the city. This is a message to the new chair of the Landmarks Preservation Commission. We want to do great things with you. We need you to act, and we need you to act now. There is no way that anybody can have ever set foot in this neighborhood and not say this is an area incredibly rich in history, history that New York benefits from, history that deserves to be preserved. And that's the message we want to send here today. So I want to get to some of our other really, really great speakers here today. The first person I'm going to ask to come up and speak is Jeremiah Moss, who I think a lot of you know and love. a fantastic blogger, Jeremiah's Vanishing New York, who had an office in this building, so he has a very, very personal connection to it, and has been like nobody else in terms of calling attention to the devastating losses, not just here, but throughout the city, and who's really been a voice for people who are trying to save New York. Jeremiah.
Thank you very much. Good? It's working? Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. Thanks everybody for being here. After watching the news this week, who's extra pissed off? Yeah! That's an energy that we can harness. I believe in that energy. Because in addition to writing and doing my blog, I'm also a psychoanalyst, and I did have an office in this building. And I can tell you that everybody wanted to get into the St. Denis. Once you were in, it was like you were set for the rest of your career because the rents were affordable. And you were part of a tight-knit community, right? I mean, I think a lot of times we walk past these buildings and we don't know what's going on upstairs. You can't hear me? Is this a little better? Yeah. Okay. So we walk past these buildings, we don't know what's going on upstairs, but once you got into the St. Denis and you had a lease, you could kind of relax. And I'd spent years bouncing around this neighborhood from office to office, my rent going up, and then I got in and I got this great affordable rent. I got a big office and a community of colleagues and friends, and just 6 months later, I got in too late. The building had been sold, and our leases were not going to be renewed.
Louder!
I don't know how much louder I can be. I have to put it sort of down my throat. Okay. All right. The St. Denis was going to be demolished and replaced with another soulless glass tower for the tech industry. I was heartbroken for myself, my friends, my colleagues, and for the building. Inside, right away you could feel the ghosts, you could feel the 165 years of history. A building, I believe, can acquire a soul in all that time. All those great historic figures that Andrew mentioned moving through here, as well as Susan B. Anthony giving speeches and rousing early feminists to fight for the right to vote in this building. It sheltered many labor unions, socialists, anarchists. The Abraham Lincoln Brigade was still here. They were down the hall from me, and they were still fighting fascism right up until this building was shut down. Wow. We need those people more than ever, right? And we need old buildings because old buildings are often affordable. They provide space for people who do work that isn't just about making money. When your rent is low, you can take risks. You can take political risks. You can create something new. You can go against the grain. You can fight for justice. And again, we need that more than ever. We need old buildings and the people inside of them because that's where resistance can happen. Resistance is not going to happen in a glass box. We need spaces of resistance against the wave of greed and ugliness that's sweeping our city and our nation.
Yes!
Resistance to the forces that want to turn everything into a commodity to be exploited for the people at the very top. So this isn't just a local issue about one building, it is global. Old buildings and the people inside of them can make big ripples that move outward through space and time, but they need affordable spaces in which to do it. The St. Denis most likely is already gone. But let its empty shell stand as a warning of what's to come. The city leaders and their real estate friends are trying to turn this neighborhood into Midtown South. Look around. Are we anywhere near Midtown? No! It does not, the Tech Hub deal isn't protecting this neighborhood. It's not protecting the old buildings. It's not protecting the people inside of them. 2 other buildings nearby have also been emptied for tech, and mostly filled with psychotherapists who've been pushed out.
We need them more than ever.
Right, exactly. What happens to the mental health of this city when the shrinks are kicked out? And I assure you, this city is sick. So before they bulldoze the whole thing, write to the Landmarks Commission, write to the mayor, tell them enough is enough. This is not Silicon Alley, this is not Midtown South, this is a neighborhood. We need it to stay that way. The heart and soul of the city is at stake. Thank you.
Very, very well said. Thank you very much. We are not Midtown South. We are not Silicon Alley. It's really a shame that so many of our leaders and developers are so tunnel visioned in the way they look at these. And we've worked with developers over the years who do have a broader, more comprehensive, more holistic view of how to do development, and we've certainly worked with city leaders who do that as well. Unfortunately, we find a dearth of them today, but hopefully this will be a wake-up call to them. So the next person who I want to ask to come up to speak is somebody who is in city government in a certain sense, as our chair of our community board, which from the very beginning has supported our efforts to get zoning, and now we're working on landmark protections for the area, Terry Coode.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank GVSHP for its quite literally tireless work. We know they don't get sleep while our city is being under attack all the time. So thank you. So what happened. We have to start from today. From today forward, this community, all of us together, need to work together to build support for more protections. We are fortunate to live in such a terrific area, and we are a victim of our own wonderful neighborhoods that everybody wants to get a piece of us. And that's why we need protection. CB2 has joined the call for landmark and zoning protections that will prevent oversized, out-of-character development like what we're about to see here. They give nothing to our neighborhood. They don't defend the character of the neighborhood. They don't stand for us, the people who built the neighborhood. CB2 pushed for the GVSHP suggested rezoning. We are absolutely committed to landmark protections. 7 to start? Well, where are the next 7 and the 14 after that? And do the multiplication, because I don't do math in public. We have to watch our vulnerable buildings. We are the stewards of it. We have to guide our elected officials. We have to tell them, do what we need, because there's an election coming, and we remember. So we stand together. We care about our neighborhoods. And there's a new Landmarks Preservation Commissioner, so the fight begins anew, and we are going to be in it. We're going to be in it with you. You're going to be in it with us. We're going to be in it with GVSHP. Let's stand together and defend the village.
Thank you so much, Terry, and to all the folks on Community Board 2 who have been such great advocates for this. And we also had some very great friends on Community Board 3. It's a little tougher fight on the other side of 4th Avenue, I have to say, but we're going to continue that work. So the next person who I want to call up to speak, speaking of the other side of 4th Avenue, is a local business person behind the beloved Veselka restaurant on 2nd Avenue. Tom Burchard, who's been in this neighborhood for 5-6 decades now, and who's really both personally and with Veselka an institution, and who's been involved in this fight from the very beginning. So Tom Burchard.
So thank you everybody for coming today. This is an issue that's truly very close to my heart. I consider it one of the great strokes of good luck that 52 years ago I had the opportunity to come to the East Village. Had the opportunity to come to the East Village and start working at Veselka as a college student. I fell in love with the people of the neighborhood, and after college I decided to stay, and I stuck through some really rough times with heroin infestations and crime and buildings being burned down. But luckily we stuck it out, and obviously things are different now. I've seen many changes. The neighborhood is cleaner, safer, but on the negative side, high rents have forced out many of the working class people that we catered to at Veselka, who we got to know, who are our friends. And also the mom and pop stores are disappearing at an alarming rate. And this is very painful for me to see. That's why I support GVSHP in the effort to preserve our neighborhood. And I'm actually very grateful that we have this wonderful organization and Andrew to protect us, because they are eating back the tide to some extent. We need to support them as much as we can. So as I said, I consider a great struggle. Good luck. 52 years ago I came to Veselka. I've seen changes, positive and negative, but I have to say I've never felt more threatened by development pressure than right now. See buildings, well, like this building behind us here, and fancy hotels being built on 4th Avenue and 11th Street across from the post office, and buildings on 3rd Avenue being upgraded from middle class to up to luxury apartment buildings. So I urge everyone to please write to the mayor, write to Carlina, support the efforts of GVSHP, get on their mailing list, write letters, raise hell. We need to let the elected officials know that we're watching, and that we vote, and that we love our neighborhood, and we're going to fight to preserve it.
Thank you so much, Tom. It's great that we have small business people in the neighborhood who are really dedicated to what this community is about, to the sort of rich diversity, the character, the history, and the individuality of each of these places that really adds to making the village and the East Village what they are. There's two quick things that I want to say that Tom inspired me to mention. I really appreciate the kudos, but you know, if I was standing here on this corner with a bullhorn by myself, nobody would really care or pay attention. It's the fact that all of you are here joining together and we're speaking with one voice, saying that this is what we want, this is what, as New Yorkers, we demand, which is why we can get the city to pay attention. And I know it's easy to feel hopeless sometimes, but I just want to remind folks, in the last 15 years, we've been able to get 1,250 buildings landmarked in our neighborhood, and nearly 100 blocks of our neighborhood rezoned. Imagine what this would be like if that hadn't happened. And it happened because of all of you turning out, writing letters, going to the hearings, showing up for the rallies, being tireless, defending what you love and putting a little bit of grit and action behind it. That's what we need to do. Sometimes it feels like you're banging your head against the wall, but sometimes we break through, and we've done that many times, and I'm hopeful, I'm very hopeful that we're going to do that again here. I mean, the 7 buildings that they're offering, they would have been offering 0 if we hadn't done this, but 7 can only be the tip of the iceberg. We need much, much, much more from the city, and I know they're going to get that message from us here today. The next person who I'd like to ask to speak is from one of our partner organizations who we worked with on this and many other issues, the East Village Community Coalition. She's also a resident of the neighborhood right nearby, deeply affected by these changes that are happening. Elizabeth Orion.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Orion. I'm on the board of the East Village Community Coalition. I live right over on 4th Avenue in the affected area. I'm here to say the East Village Community Coalition supports all the efforts of the Greenwich Village Society for Historic Preservation in getting better zoning in these areas, both in CB2, CB3. We feel that this area needs as good of protection as we have on the other side of 3rd Avenue. This is not Silicon Alley. This is not Midtown South. This is a residential neighborhood. I live here, many of us live here. We want to preserve the residential character. We do not want these big glass buildings. They do not belong here. There are other places that are much more conducive to that kind of development. This building in particular, you heard about the history, You've heard about people that have been working in here. It had a lot of psychoanalysts, and somebody indicated that we need them more than ever, and I think we do. Our disappointment in our elected officials that couldn't get the protections when there was a possibility of conditioning greater protections on getting the tech hub, it went nowhere. I actually contributed to Carolina and said my contributions are based on the fact that you're going to support the protections in this area. That went nowhere. I'm deeply disappointed. I could use some psychoanalysts. We need to embrace our old buildings. The East Village, Greenwich Village, it's all about renewal. It's all about reinventing ourselves. It's not about breaking down and building up big glass buildings. It's a community, and it's one of the last communities left in New York where people stick together. We're all here sticking together, hoping for the best for our village and hoping that we can maintain reasonable rents, inclusionary zoning where we can have affordable housing. These are things that the mayor says he's behind. Where is he? This is a building that could easily be reinvented into something that helps lower middle income individuals and keep things like the psychoanalysts and the health and wellness type of small business owners that were in this building. Why can't we reinvent? Why are we ripping down? Why are we constantly importing people from other areas? Yeah, it might be a slight influx during the day, but at night we live here. We have to walk by these big buildings, silent, giant monoliths of glass, which, as a single woman who walks around the streets alone, I feel very uncomfortable in transforming from a residential neighborhood into a new tech hub. We have other places for that. I just want to say, everybody, do what you can. Write to anyone you can. It's the voices that make a difference. And we're here to support everything that Greenwich Village Society of Historic Preservation is doing to help us.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. It's great to have groups like the East Village Community Coalition and the Bowery Alliance of Neighbors and so many others who've been involved with this. I have to say I'm really inspired by the turnout today and all of the folks who are here. And, you know, our detractors like to paint us as absolutists who never compromise and who are unrealistic in what we want. We were looking for, and we are still looking for, a win-win. And there should be win-wins. If you're a real leader, you can come up with a win-win where you're able to serve one important constituency and another as well. It shouldn't be a zero-sum game, which is too often what we see the mayor and others turning these issues into. We said we can accept a 23-story building on 14th Street housing some good stuff as well as some big money-making crap for your campaign donors, Mr. Mayor, if you're willing to protect the neighborhood around it and make sure that it doesn't get turned into an extension of Silicon Alley. Well, we got the first part, but we didn't get the second part, but we're not giving up that fight, and that's why we're here today. So the next person I want to ask to come up to speak is a lifelong resident of this neighborhood with deep, deep roots in the neighborhood and who actually lives just across the street. She's been very involved with GVSHP and many other wonderful and important efforts in the neighborhood. She, I believe, can speak to, in a very personal way, one moment. Like so many of us, she's very personally affected by these changes, loves this community, and wants to see it grow while preserving what's most important about it. So I want to ask Anita Isola to come up and say a few words.
Hello? Okay. My name's Anita Isola. I'm a lifelong villager. I think I see a lot of villagers that have been here for a long time. Maybe some of you are lifelong villagers. But my guess is I may be the only one who's a fourth generation villager. My great-grandparents were here. I recently found that out. My grandparents on both sides had businesses here. My father had a business here. I went to school at St. Joseph's Academy on Washington Square, and I raised my son here. So this village, this neighborhood is my hometown, and just for that reason, it's important to save it. But for all of us, it's much more important than my story. It's the history of New York City and the history of the art world. The writers, the painters, the people who worked here were incredible. And we are privileged to be here. And it really is our duty to preserve this. Now, we have the Tech Hub. Carlina has reneged on her promise. But it's not just the Tech Hub. You could see it. It's actually engulfing us. There's NYU. There's I think it's 26-story dorm on 12th Street that they built. Then they started on Astor Place. On Astor Place, IBM has about 6 floors. Zuckerberg just moved into the old Warner Baker building. He has 4 floors plus a roof garden. This is not my paranoia. We're becoming encircled in this area, and we know it's the plan because de Blasio has announced it to be the plan. Now this particular spot, I live right here at the Stewart House. I didn't always live there. I lived in a lot of places in the village. Now I'm here. I am very fortunate because my living room overlooks this incredible church. I am a very happy camper. But this spot here is really sacred. We have what used to be McCrawley's. This was part of Ladies Mile, the great department store. We have this historic hotel. We have this Renwick building, which is mentioned in the Caleb Carr novels. And they're starting here. It's not going to end here. We know that for sure. And we have got to push Carlina Rivera. I think we have some hope now that we have a new Landmarks Commission chairperson. And for the skeptics, please keep this in mind and don't give up, because once this is gone, it is gone. And there's no place else that is like this place. So please let's stick together, even in moments of discouragement, and really give it our best. The village did it. The village, it's a tradition in this neighborhood. We fought, was before my time, we fought Robert Moses, who wanted to go through the park. Let's do this while we still have a shot.
Thank you so much, Anita. It's wonderful to have people like you and like so many others who this really just runs through their veins. It's who they are. There's all different reasons why we choose to live or work or spend time in this community. It's a really, really special part of New York. There's not a lot of places in this country or in this world that are like it. It's precious. It deserves to be protected and preserved. And we're here today to say to our elected officials, to our mayor, to the new chair of the Landmarks Preservation Commission, it's not too late to do the right thing. And once it's gone, it cannot be brought back. And we're all, I think, painfully aware of some very tragic mistakes that we've seen made in this country and happening in this country. And I think whether it's on our doorstep or wherever else, we want to do everything we can to defend the aspects of our communities and what we see around us that we value, that we hold dear, and we're going to go down fighting. And as I said before, I'm confident that we are going to ultimately prevail. So please, nobody leave here today without sending off those letters to the commissioner and to the mayor, and bring those signs home with you so that you have it, and you can say to your neighbor who you saw this morning and you said, hey, are you coming to the rally? And they were like, I'm not so sure, blah blah blah. Say, all right, you didn't make it, but you can still send this letter, because I'll tell you, if the chair of the Landmarks Preservation Commission comes in Monday morning and her inbox is deluged with 300 or 400 letters saying this is what you need to do, she's going to pay attention, and we're going to be meeting with her shortly. And I want to go into that meeting saying, I know you've gotten hundreds of these emails. I know you know that this is something that people care about. So the effort does not end here. There's going to be a rally on October 13th. There's lots of stuff going on. Please, if you haven't already, sign up for the GVSHP email list. We will let you know what's going on in our neighborhood. Stay engaged. Make sure you work with us to fight for what we really care about, because it's worth the fight, and once it's gone, there's no bringing it back. So, save the village, 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 save the village. All right, everybody, thank you so much for coming out today. To all our wonderful speakers and co-sponsors, keep doing the work and enjoy this beautiful, beautiful fall day that we've been blessed with today. Thank you.